Hi guys, I'm Jim and this is Jim's Fix-It Shop, and today we're going to pull the right fender off and get ready to open this thing up, and we're going to take a look and see what this double-aught snapper lube looks like. Now this machine, I was talking to the boss, we're trying to figure out how old is it. Well, he couldn't remember when he bought it, but he did tell me where he bought it from. So I called them up and I said, look, I'm trying to figure out exactly how old this machine is. Can you give me some ideas? And I said, I don't have the serial number in front of me. She says, well, what's the name that it was purchased under? So I told him the name, and she said, well, yeah, it's right here. She said it was bought on 4/6 of 2012. So this is a tiny bit older than 5 years old. And if you remember what the lube looked like, let me grab it. This is the chain case that we took off. If I could get it apart. It has a few issues, not too bad. Oh, I forgot I cleaned it. I guess I won't show you what it looks like. It has a few issues as far as we lost a bearing on the large gear in the chain case. So I think I'm going to replace both of them. The bushings, the bearings on the top feel real good. I'm not going to worry about those. But for just being 5 years old, I would think that snapper lube would still be solidified to the point where the chain and the gears could spread it around inside of there like it's supposed to. So I'm kind of curious on what it's going to look like inside the differential. Today we're just going to pull it off. I'm supposed to run over and help my sister move, so I don't have a lot of time. But I will crack it open on camera so you can see it as soon as I see it, so you know that I didn't change anything. So I guess let me move the camera down because I got to work on the floor on this. I can't lift it and get it up on the bench. Eventually I'd like to buy one of them hydraulic lift tables, but they're pretty expensive and I don't really use one that much, so I don't think I'm going to buy one right away. So I guess let's climb down here and take a look at this thing. Okay, now we're down here. There's 6 bolts we have to break loose to get this thing off of here. They're 1/2 inch. Now, if you were taking this thing all apart to repair it, if you pull the right side off first, which we're doing now, and you get this all loose, when we took the chain case off, we had to disassemble and remove part of the yoke so we could get the chain case out. If you take this side off first, you can pull that whole assembly out, the axles, the hex shaft, and then the chain case will just lift right out. You wouldn't have to mess with this. But I did it the other way around to show you what you'd have to do if you just wanted to take out the chain case and repair it without messing with this side of it. And you'll need a 1/2 inch wrench on these newer styles. They have a nut and a bolt holding the fender onto a brace bar that goes across. Now once you take this off, your shifting linkage are probably going to fall out of place on you. So you want to keep track of where that is. I'm going to pull one more bolt out. This goes into that same brace. Now spin this around and this comes off. It holds up the linkage that comes from your shifter and goes down to your chain case. That's what it pivots on. So if you're not careful, this will come out of the top of the deck or the top of the rear case, and the whole thing's going to fall apart on you. But it's not that bad to put back together. We'll take out the rest of these bolts. The bracket's going to come off that holds up the mower deck. That's this piece. And we'll spin the rest of these out of here. You kind of want to keep track of the bolts, where they come from, because there are some, if you hold them up, if I can get them the same, there are some that are different lengths. The longer ones go up in this corner that goes through the bracket, the fender, and into the frame. And we got one more, and the rest of these are shorter. And that's it. Now, like I said, if you want to disassemble the whole thing at once, you could get this loose. You can grab onto it on the inside, grab your chain case, and then just pull this right out, and the whole thing will come apart. That fender will still be in place. Okay, we got it out and ready to tear apart. Like I said, when I open this baby up, I'll have the camera on, and you can see what this thing looks like inside. I don't expect to find any problems at all, except if you remember the bushing on the axle on this side had about 8 to 10 thousandths play in it. We want to get rid of that. We want to clean this thing up and get it like it was when it was new. So that's the only reason I'm going to break this thing open, is to replace that bushing. Otherwise, a 5-year-old machine, I really, what do I even want to say? I really appreciate the opportunity to have this, to take it apart on camera and show you how to take them apart, rebuild them, and put them back together. This was a huge opportunity for me to get one this new to work on. I really hated to tear this thing apart. I really did. It's just, especially when I found out it's only 5 years old. But that just goes to show you, age doesn't mean much. When they put this together, I don't know what standards they use. Let me spin this around. I don't know what standards they use when they manufacture these bushings. How tight of tolerances do they hold? You don't know. Do they check every single bushing? You don't know. When we check stuff at the shop, when we manufacture it, we have a plus or minus range on the blueprints that the manufacturer gives us to work with. So if they have a plus or minus 0.002 tolerance on the bore on this bearing, and something gets out of alignment a little and they bore some to the high side of the tolerance, they're still within tolerance. It's still manufacturer's specs and they use them. Is that good or bad? Well, you got to have some kind of a tolerance. You can't make every part perfect. Tooling wears. You get there in the morning, you turn your machines on, your machines are cold. Now, believe it or not, you're running a huge machine. You turn that thing on in the morning, everything's cold, and sizes will change. It's hard to believe, but some of the older machines, when they warm up, you might change 0.005 of an inch between the time you turn that on in the morning and the time it gets warmed up, which could be 2 hours later. So it's critical you make sure you check your parts, especially the first ones that you're making in the morning. Once the machine warms up, you can run these things all day long and sizes aren't going to change that much. But you just never know when is the right time to do maintenance on a machine like this. I guess it depends how long you plan on keeping it. Some people buy a brand new car every 2 years. They do nothing to them. They put gas in them, they change the oil, they probably never even put tires on it. They sell it, buy a new one. That's a reliable way of knowing that you're going to be able to sell your car because it's only 2 years old. But if you're like me and you keep a car forever, you better take care of it. And it's the same with these snappers. If you plan on keeping one for 25 or 30 years, you got to do some maintenance to them. You got to tear them down. You got to find out what's wrong with them before it does a lot of damage. My old one, when I bought it, it was, I don't know how old it was at that point. The bushings were shot, and once the bushings get bad enough, it destroys the axle. Then you have to buy new axles. And it adds up. But when I rebuilt that 33-inch, it was just ran. Yeah, I don't think any maintenance was ever done to it. And by the time I got it and I tore it apart, I had to replace a lot of stuff. I put about $275 worth of parts in that thing. But now it's like brand new. It'll last me another 20 years. Hopefully it'll outlast me. But that's just something to think about. The biggest issue on these things, I had a viewer call me and say that he lost his drivetrain, locked right up on him. Locked up the machine, he couldn't move it, couldn't push it. He tore it down and found out that the needle bearings in the chain case locked up. Well, as I was looking at the pictures he sent me, there were no boots on the machine at all. The boots not only keep the hex shaft clean so it will shift good, it keeps all the sand and crap out of the differential in the chain case. By looking at the pictures, I would say the chain case got sand or dirt or dust. It doesn't take much in them bearings and it destroyed them. It locked it right up. These are extremely important to keep your eye on. They're easy to check. You shift your chain case back and forth, stretch them out, and if it's ripped, you're going to see it. You want to take care of these things if you want to keep them for 20 years. If you plan on pedaling them after 2 or 3 years and buying a new one, I guess just run them. The only problem is with this was the last good machine Snapper produced. This was bought in 2012. The sources I've talked to that told me when they started re-engineering these things was when they came out in 2013. So if you've got a 2012 or older, you're going to want to take care of them. Or you got to go out there and buy something else that is not going to suck your leaves up like these things do. Just something to think about. Now I have a couple of questions about sponsorships. Do you have sponsors? No, I have no sponsors. I take no donations. I just do this because I enjoy doing it. I had someone ask me, does Pepsi sponsor you? You always have a Pepsi in your videos. I always have a Pepsi, period. It's what I drink. I enjoy drinking Pepsi. It tastes good to me. And I always have one of these within arm's reach, no matter what I'm doing. That's just me. I did a video, my previous one before this was on my Skeel equipment I just bought. Somebody wanted to know, does Skeel sponsor you or endorse you? No. It's something I bought. It's something that I believe that is extremely well built. They're built right here in this country. And they're not cheap. And I use that term not monetarily. They are not inexpensive either, but they are not cheaply built. They are well manufactured. If I buy something, excuse me, if I buy something and have a problem with it, you're going to hear about that too. I don't want you viewers to blindly go out and buy something that I've already got. That doesn't work. And on the same note, if I get something that really works well and I like it, you're going to hear about that too. So the next video will be opening this bad boy up and seeing what's inside of it. And at that point, I have nothing else left to take off this poor thing. I don't know if we can get it in view or not. I guess I did check with my tool I made. Mine is steel because I use them a lot. I did check the drive disc and it is a little high. You have two settings on here. The lower setting won't even go on. The highest one does fit on, but there is a gap of about a 1/16 of an inch between where it should be touching on the gauge, right here on this shoulder, and on the face of this. So I think I'm going to lower that about a 1/16 of an inch to get it at least the minimum distance. And when I put this back together, tip this thing up. When I put this back together, I will be tightening the spring on the yoke and make sure everything is working great, and give it back to them. So after we take this apart and clean it out, I'll be ordering parts, and I will show you the old ones as I mark down the parts that I need. We'll get them ordered. Hopefully it won't take long to get them, and I can get this baby back together. We'll do all that on camera and make my boss happy, because he's getting a little worried that leaves are going to start falling and he's not going to have his snapper back. I don't think that happened. So until next time, work safe, have fun, and hey, enjoy a Pepsi. We'll talk to you soon.